you very much. I too am not Rodney Slater. But the last time I was in this room, I spoke on the stage with Rodney Slater. So that gives me a certain level of credence. It must. It's really a terrible irony that I'm up here with the 1986 report on the future of the South as my point of departure, because the gentleman who made that happen, along with President Clinton, is sitting right there. Governor Winter, would you stand? Whenever any governor anywhere in the United States leaves office, they should be forced to attend the William Winter School of Ex-Governors, because he's absolutely been the best ex-governor anybody's ever had. He's also a great governor. It's great to be at Little Rock. It'll be greater in just a few minutes when the sun gets a little bit further down over there. This is a really familiar cityscape to me. I failed to grow up here. I lived here from the age of 4, I think, to 18. I am an Arkansawer, as some of us are given to say. I was born in a real small town in northern Arkansas. My memory of Arkansas governors extends back to Sid McMath and Francis Cherry, for those of you, those names may mean something to. And I had the great good fortune of having a chance to work on some projects with President Clinton when he was governor of Arkansas. I was running a research organization in Louisiana. And for the last 7 years at Southern Growth, I really had the great experience of working closely with Governor Huckabee, who served as chairman of our Southern Technology Council and chairman of Southern Growth. We had an annual meeting and conference in Hot Springs here, and he's really been a pleasure and a great leader for us during his terms as well. So for all of those reasons and my affection for this place and how happy it makes me to look out here and see what's happening along the riverfront and knowing how long it has taken to get this far and how much it means to Little Rock and Arkansas, this is just great. Thanks for allowing me to be part of this. You heard a little bit about Southern Growth Policies Board and its structure, so I won't bore you further with that. I'm going to use some points in time to frame the things that I want to say. And I want to start in the early 70s, because that's really when the Southern Growth story started. And this may be apocryphal. I cannot swear that this happened, but it's been told often enough that it goes in the history books now, whether it actually happened or not. And that is that the Governor, Terry Sanford of North Carolina, who was a wonderful visionary governor and leader, was on his way down to Atlanta to see Governor Jimmy Carter. And he was flying down there, and he got stuck in a holding pattern. Now, I know that's never happened to any of you, but and it didn't happen to me today because I flew through Charlotte. But he got stuck in a holding pattern. It was a fairly clear day, so he was able to see below him, and he started looking at what was happening. And Atlanta was already in the midst of a big growth spurt, just blossoming in every direction without anything resembling planning or foresight or vision. It was just growing. And Governor Sanford thought, this is ugly. This is not working for us. We're getting the kind of growth that we always said we wanted, and we're not getting the benefit of that growth in the way that we hope to get it. It's not actually improving our quality of life in the way that it could. Maybe we ought to talk about that. So when he got off the plane and got downtown and saw Governor Carter, they had a conversation about that. And they said, yeah, we ought to have an ongoing conversation on the future of the South. And we need to get the other governors in this. But we've already got a governors association, so it needs to be broader than that. we need legislators, we need civic leaders, we need people who are not a formal part of the governmental process. So they created Southern Growth Policies Board in that image. And the first annual meeting of Southern Growth Policies Board was held in the Folk Center in northern Arkansas with Governor Bumpers hosting it. So our roots, although we've always been located from an office standpoint in North Carolina, our roots very much come back to Arkansas in some really important ways. A wonderful story that I heard recently, I think, illustrates the dynamic of conversations that were going on then among public leaders, and maybe why you needed a Southern Growth Policies Board at that point. And it was told to me by a gentleman who is the president of a small liberal arts college in Virginia. But 30-something years ago, he was chief of staff to a governor of Virginia who will stay nameless because of this story, figured out. And he said that governor was kind of resistant about what Southern Growth wanted to do. And that he was in the room when his governor and Governor Sanford had a long conversation about whether we needed to be thinking about new kinds of industries, new kinds of businesses, building from within, all of those kinds of things. And he said, I'm just not sure that Virginia needs that, because we have tobacco, we have furniture, and we have textiles, and those things are bulletproof. So I don't know why we would need to do that. Furniture, textiles, tobacco. Well, it seemed like it. You could build a pretty strong case that those things were bulletproof. But before I say anything else, let me just say that nothing is bulletproof. Nothing. Not anything that I'm going to suggest, not anything that any other speaker is going to suggest. Nothing is bulletproof. If this is about anything, it's about learning that lesson, and that lesson means we all have to be devoted to lifelong learning, to constantly looking for the next set of opportunities, constantly preparing ourselves for the next set of opportunities. I could just sit down after that because that is the message. But I won't, because I have more notes. So I love that story, and of course it made me feel good about having the chance to work at Southern Growth Policies Board, which I pretty much do most days anyway, except when I'm stuck in a holding pattern in Atlanta, or having to spend the night because I missed the last plane. So among the things that Southern Growth began to do fairly early on was convene, at that time, what we called Commission for the Future of the South. And the first one was in 1974. Governor Carter convened that one and published a report on the future. Good piece of work. Another one was done in 1980 with Governor Riley in South Carolina leading that effort. Both of those were excellent pieces of work. Both of them helped a great deal, but neither of them captured anybody's imagination. Neither of them caught fire. Neither of them started being the way we talked about the region. But in 1986, when Governor Clinton was chairman of Southern Growth Policies Board, and he asked Governor Winthrop to chair the 1986 Commission on the Future of the South, magic began to happen. They convened a lot of meetings of the commission, had some really interesting people involved, very much a bipartisan effort with Republican governors just as involved. Very bright people leading the effort. Jesse White, my friend and colleague, who was executive director of Southern Growth at that point, doing yeoman service. And they listened to a lot of people around the South, got input from several hundred people. And Governor Clinton at some point said, it's not that we haven't made progress. It's not that we haven't done that. We've done some good things. But the reality is we're halfway home and a long way to go. And that became the credo, and that became the title of the report. We will sell you one, but it's off of our copying machine because there aren't any printed versions left of that's what the report looked like in 1986. And it was more influential than any other work of its kind. It was discussed in the state houses and the legislatures. Everybody began measuring their own efforts in communities and in states around the South based on what this report was saying. Not only did it say important things, it said it particularly well. You have the articulate nature of the leaders, but the leaders also hired a Southern writer. They hired the wonderful Doris Betts to actually write the document. So instead of being in bureaucratese or governmentese, it is actually in the language of English, Southern English at that. So it reads particularly well. There are wonderful photographs of a very young-looking Bill Clinton, Governor Winfield, and others in the book. And it does really capture that sense of what it's about to be from the South, what it's about to have the kinds of hopes and dreams that we have, and the kinds of frustrations that we have. So what did that report end up talking about? The report was framed around 10 regional objectives. And in most of these, then Governor Clinton said he wanted to accomplish all of these by 1992. And the reason for that, I think, wasn't that he was planning on being president by 1992, though that worked out. I think it was just that there was another report on the future of the South due. At that point, we were doing them every 6 years, and so he wanted all these things accomplished in time for the next report. Well, perhaps that was a little overambitious, but it was a good way to get things going. 10 regional objectives. Number 1, provide a nationally competitive education for all Southern students. Well, if Governor Winter is going to be involved in a project, I will lay you odds that the first recommendation on that project, whatever the subject was when we started, will be about education for good and sound reasons. Because a good education for all of our children, for all of our adults, is simply fundamental to everything else we will ever talk about. It is an absolutely necessary condition for economic prosperity. It's not sufficient. There's some other things too, but it's absolutely necessary. So did we do that? This is a question for you. Did we provide a nationally competitive education for all Southern students? Did we? Not yet. Not yet. We made some progress. We made more progress in some areas than others. But if we were writing this report today, we'd still say the same thing. We try to get better about how to get it done. We try to show better examples, but we wouldn't be there. Mobilize resources to eliminate adult functional illiteracy. That was number 2. For a while, we did a pretty good job of that. And in fact, you can trace some statewide efforts that were pretty effective directly to the release of the report. But then we seem to kind of lose our energy and lose our way, and we still have very, very large literacy issues. Number 3, prepare a flexible, globally competitive workforce. Working on the 2007 report on the future of the South right now. It's about the workforce. What do you think it's going to say? I think I can just take this. Prepare a flexible, globally competitive workforce. Our work is done. Yeah, it's still there. Moreover, it's a little unfair. This would always be there. Even if we've done a really good job, we'd still have to be talking about it because of that first point that I made. Nothing's bulletproof. You got to stay there. You have to keep going. You can't say that's enough. There's no degree that's enough. There's no certificate that's enough. You must continue to learn, and we must do that societally. What we did do during that period is we got pretty good at training, specific training. And if you talk to industry, whenever states have organized to prepare for a specific job because a specific industry is moving in, we do a pretty good job of that. What we have not done at all is prepare our citizens to be trained on their own and to move to that next level on their own and have the seamless structures between elementary and secondary education, community colleges, training institutes, etc., that you really need to make it easy for people to do that, easier for people to do that. Number 4, strengthen society as a whole by strengthening at-risk families. Well, we did welfare reform, and that was a good thing to move away from the welfare-based society. But did we do the other half? Did we help people build the bridge to prosperity who were at risk? I don't see anybody nodding their head this way. So that remains a challenge. Number 5, increase the economic development role of higher education. I can say pretty well that we have done that. I don't think we've done that as effectively as we want to. But wherever I go in the South, universities and community colleges are more involved in economic development than they were 20 years ago. So I can comfortably say, I can put a check by that and say we got substantially better. An area where we still have a lot of opportunities and where we can get much better. That's what the lessons say, that's what our experience is. Number 6, increase the South's capacity to generate and use technology. This one's a little bit of a sleeper. It's almost cheap because Southern Growth Policies Board at the time was in the process of forming the Southern Technology Council that was going to lead that conversation in the South. So this was a setup. There was an actual vehicle there to do something about it. And under Stu Rosenfeld's leadership, the council published a report 2 years later called Turning to Technology that was probably the single most influential document of its type in the United States in terms of encouraging a region to move forward in a specific way and providing the framework for that, the tools for that. Every state in the South, in one way or another, adopted and acted on those recommendations. And I think it was more successful simply because there was a mechanism for that. We were a little bit, we actually had something we could go and do about that. Again, however, we're not as close as we need to be to the national averages. We perhaps didn't focus as much on the underlying innovation process, and we didn't convince as many people as we needed to convince. We sort of convinced those who were directly involved in the process. We didn't make it a part of the community conversation, part of the fabric of the community. Number 7, implement new economic development strategies aimed at homegrown business and industry. This is the Jesse White sleeper. This would be Jess speaking directly through the document because he was among the first to see that the South was relying too heavily on industrial recruitment and not doing anywhere enough to build from within, to encourage entrepreneurs, to encourage home-owned businesses, to invent it here, build it here, grow it here. And that's what this set out to do. And yes, we have made progress. We are still behind the curve. And that along with the innovation recommendation, and it showed up clearly, there was a recent survey by Business Week magazine of, I think, 3,000 industries worldwide, and they were asking for who are the most innovative companies in the world. Who are they? And of the top 25, only one of them is headquartered in the South. And that speaks way too much to our limitations and what we haven't accomplished, because so many of the large companies that we think of in the South are actually headquartered somewhere else. So the profits go elsewhere and the donations go elsewhere, and when there are layoffs, well, they occur where we are, because it's much easier to lay somebody off in a town that you don't live in. So what was that one company? Anybody want to guess? One Southern company in the top 25 innovative companies in the world. Dell. Not Dell. Walmart. Walmart because of everything it does that you don't see. Walmart because of the remarkable innovation machine that it is from a marketing, inventory, and sales. Walmart. Number 8. enhance the South's natural and cultural resources. Natural and cultural. On the natural side, I think that most southern states have done a continuing better job in developing state parks, managing state parks, managing cultural resources, that sort of thing, while the federal government has gone to sleep. Because we're not putting the money in managing federal resources. We're not maintaining the remarkable park system that we have. If you go look at what's happening to the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is a national treasure, for example, every year it gets less well kept. Every year there are fewer dollars for more people going through there. And that's true in national parks all over the country. So we're losing at one level, but I do think the states have done a much better job than the federal government in this area. And certainly states have become more aware of their cultural heritage over the last 20 years. And things like historic preservation are up, things like writing centers and poetry centers and museums at the community and state level. All of those things are places in which I think we have, in fact, progressed. Number 9, develop pragmatic leaders with global vision. At least from an organizational standpoint, I will say yes to this. And by organization, I mean that pretty much every state in the South and a lot of communities in the South have formal leadership programs now. And if you go back 20 years, that was, for the most part, not the case. Southern Growth did some follow-up work on it, published some additional work. People like the Pew Foundation and Pew Trust and others were out there at the same time doing that. I don't know that I'm ready to say we see all the fruits of that yet. I don't know that I'm ready to say that our leaders are better than they were 20 years ago. But are we making the effort to train more people, to give more people the opportunity to be leaders? I think the answer to that is yes, and I at least give us high marks on effort for that. And number 10, improve the structure and performance of state and local governments. You know, it's so easy to pick on that. It is so easy to pick on him. But I was alive 20 years ago. And I have to tell you, I think state and local governments are better today than they were 20 years ago. I wouldn't say that about every state and local government, but if I look at it across the board, I think we're actually better. Some of this may be the prejudice of having lived more than half of those years in Louisiana and knowing how bad things were. And they're just not that bad. Louisiana is just not as corrupt, not as inept as it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And I can say that about a lot of places. I think state and local government really has some things to be proud of. However, there's always that however. However, we have no meaningful conversation going about governmental structure. Absolutely none. We're perfectly satisfied to say that counties, which were created 100, 200 years ago when the transportation was completely different, are an appropriate size for a governmental organizational unit. And if you say anything about it, you're going to get strung up. You're not going to be treated kindly. It's hard to get that going in a dispassionate way. Governor Huckabee did a remarkable thing. He tried to do something about the size of school districts in Arkansas and was not treated well. So if you were around here, it was a tough time for him. And he was able to get a little bit of a compromise, but you still have school districts that just make no sense in terms of size. So there's a whole series of conversations about structure of government that we need to grow up about. We need to be having some right-sized conversations. And obviously, schools of government have to be very much in the lead on that. It is a proper place for a dispassionate conversation. So those were the things that came out of that. Among other things that happened, learned. One of the things we learned was that 6 years was too long in between reports, and we don't do that anymore. Some people accuse me of moving us in that direction just because my two predecessors were fired on the anniversary of the 6 years. But it's truly not the case. We just found that 6 years was too long in between examining these things. So there was too much work to do. So for the past 6 years now, we've been doing it every year. And that's a very aggressive schedule, but we've been able to learn to listen. I think we went to school on what that commission accomplished, and we've put in some structures for getting more people engaged in the conversation. 2006 report, which I'll talk about in a minute, had over 4,000 co-authors. There were that many people who provided direct input to the report. We think we get better when we're listening more. So that was a lesson learned for us. I think that another lesson that if we were writing a similar report today, we would want to spend a lot more time talking about civic engagement and social capital in informal terms. I think that that's much more something we're much more aware of the critical need for. When we had our annual meeting in Arkansas, Robert Putnam came and spoke and just lit up the crowd talking about bowling alone and the implications for that, the implications for communities. And I think that is now central to certainly to what we're about and what we think is important about the future of the South. We also learned, I think, that it's preposterous to talk about the future of the South and not have a future in the room. A lot of times in work that I've been guilty of, been party to, we're in a room talking about the future of the South and everybody looks like me. And I'm the wrong age to be leading a conversation about the future of the South, meaning people who are actually going to be alive for the future of the South in that conversation. So we are working very hard at engaging more young people in our work. We've had 4 state youth forums around the subjects that we're working on, and we're hoping to make that a regular part of our work. We're hoping to actually bring some people between the ages of 18 and 22 onto the board in a decision-making, weight-bearing role, because we think that's important. Obviously, a lot of lessons learned about the creative economy, about the role that artists and artisans and writers and poets and other creative people can play in communities, not just from a quality of life standpoint, but from an economic standpoint. And if you look, for example, at what's happening in Western North Carolina with the arts and crafts trails there, everyone now recognizes that it's a weight-bearing part of the economy. And the people in the Chamber of Commerce talk to the long-haired hippie types who live out in the woods and make things. And this is a good thing. This is generating its own form of social capital. Certainly we continue to learn lessons about things like what we were calling industrial networks early on and later became known as clusters. You won't find anything about that being discussed in 1986, and it became a central thing in economic development in the intervening years. It's very important to how we think about the economy, and it leads to the next part of the conversation, which is about regionalism. We know that business clusters exist in definable economic regions, and that those don't happen to conform to state lines or city lines or county lines or any other form of governmental jurisdiction. They just form along trading areas, along labor markets. That's the way that works. So we've learned that the best way to organize to deliver economic development services is at the regional level. And that means most states in the South would be a part of several regions, and it means most states would have regions that bleed into other states. It calls for new forms of collaboration and new forms of behavior. And if you place that side by side with that other conversation earlier about governmental structure, it really gets interesting. Because if we're sure, and we are, that the region is the right unit to use for economic development, then don't we need to be having that conversation about what the right unit for education is, what the right unit for police is, what the right unit levy boards is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's a whole movement of right-sizing government that needs pushing forward. So clusters and regions became very central to what we're doing. And I think we're all just scratching the surface in regard to that. And all of this comes at an interesting time because we keep electing people who don't believe in government. We keep electing people who tell us that government is a bad thing and they want to run it. I'm a little baffled by that. Why do you want to run it if it's such a bad thing? I think we've forgotten and we've let go of the reality that government's just us. It's just how we organize to get some stuff done. That's all it is. It's all it can be. It's not something apart. If we point to it as the root of evil, we are pointing to ourselves. And I think that's an important, again, lesson that we've begun to learn over the course of time. I'll close with a few remarks. A few remarks about the latest piece of work and where it's taking us. And it's called Innovation with a Southern Accent. This is the 2006 report on the future of the South. And we were trying to build on 20 years of good work here and take it somewhere where it hadn't been. And all of this obviously occurs in the context of the knowledge economy. I told you we spent a lot of time listening. I was in one of those listening sessions in Alabama. A woman from Huntsville came up to me, engineering background, very bright lady. She said, I have a problem with this work on technology and this knowledge economy stuff that I need to tell you about. And I said, well, sure, what's that? She said, well, I got a Cadillac, and it's got this OnStar system, and I never used it because I carried a cell phone. I didn't have any reason to use the cell phone in the OnStar system, but I ran out of gas and my cell phone was out of battery. I had no way to communicate with anyone. So I decided I'd use that fancy OnStar thing, and I turned it on, and I tried to make a call, and I couldn't. And every time I told it what number I wanted to call, it told me I needed to start all over again. I spent 45 minutes on it, got very frustrated. So somebody finally came along, picked her up, took her home. And she said she got home, and she got out the manual, and she called the 800 number, and she complained to them about what had happened. And the woman from the call center said, well, what number were you dialing? And she said, 8, 6, 5. The woman said, wait, I know what the problem is. She said, what's the problem? She said, you don't know how to speak numbers. What do you mean I don't know how to speak numbers? Well, you're saying the number's wrong, but it's okay. We have a number still that we can send you to. You can call this number online, and they'll explain to you how to say 865. So she did, not happily, but she did. And she said she learned to pronounce 8 so that her OnStar system would work, but she never could get it to understand 6. So she said, what we need is innovation with a Southern accent. So we settled that as the title of the report. And the report is organized around 3 things, and I'll leave you with this. That if we're going to succeed in the knowledge economy, ignorance is not a particularly good platform. That's number 1. And that if it's not a good platform, then we need to think seriously about policies and how to measure our efforts and how to get really good at things in 3 areas, because knowledge is used this way. Number 1, in every community in the South, in every region in the South, in every state in the South, we need to be serious about creating new knowledge. We need more of it. We need more inventions, we need more solutions, we need more poems, we need more fiction, we need more paintings, we need more photography. We need knowledge brought into the world by Southerners. It's a good thing. Number 2, we need to accumulate and share that knowledge. That's the educational system at every level. It's every library, it's every database, it's every museum. Any way, any entity that accumulates and shares knowledge is central to this process, and we need more of it, and we need it to operate need to apply that knowledge more effectively, because that's how we make money. Apply that knowledge. If we make money, we at least have a chance for a higher quality of life. It's how we create wealth. If you think about it, there are very limited ways in which you can actually increase the wealth in your community or your region. The government won't give you a printing press. I think that's selfish of them. But they won't. So you have to do it some other way. So no matter where you draw the line for the region that you're going to define, it works this way. If you're going to increase the wealth in that region, you must sell goods and services outside that region, and you must import cash into that region. And to do it really well, you have to increase your gross profit, your community gross profit. Every business has to be able to make more money. How does it do that? Technology and innovation. Innovation is the process of adding value. It's the process of increasing gross profit. It's why it's important to economic development. Not because it's some romantic ideal, not because it's a fancy word, because it's the key to increasing your gross profit, which is in turn the key to increasing wealth in our communities and in the bank accounts of Southerners. Ignorance is a bad platform. If you read mythology, you know that Daedalus and Icarus had this little adventure with wings and with a labyrinth. And in mythology, the labyrinth that you get stuck inside is always of your own creation. Always. Daedalus made the labyrinth. So he couldn't get out. So they made some wings to get out. Didn't work out for him. Our ignorance is our labyrinth. That's the one we're stuck in the South. It's always the barrier. It's knowledge that knocks it down. If we want to escape our own labyrinth, the labyrinth of our creation, we will escape it on wings of knowledge. During the same time period that Governor Winter, Governor Clinton, and others were doing this magnificent work, just a little bit later, three governors signed a compact in the middle of the Mississippi River on a barge to create a Delta initiative. Led to a lot of really good things happening in the Delta. Bill Clinton from Arkansas, Ray Mavis from Mississippi, Buddy Roemer from Louisiana. It became a really big event. Some of you were probably on that barge, I'm guessing. Looking around the room. Became a really central event, and it was a wonderful image of something important happening, something about collaborating across state lines. I want to suggest another ceremony. I have one that I want to see before I move on. Guy who wrote the Atlanta Constitution in the 1880s coined the term New South. New South. You hear it in every speech that any governor gives, pretty much still. New South. What the New South represented was a deal that allowed northern industrialists to open branch plants in the South providing cheap, white, relatively ignorant labor for low-income jobs so that we would become industrial tenant farmers to the nation. And oh yeah, we got to impose Jim Crow laws so that our African-American citizens were relegated to second-class status for the next 100 years or so. Well, not quite that long, but a long time. That's the New South. So here's what I want. I want a funeral. I want to go to a funeral in which we bury the New South and give it the cold, dead monument that it deserves.
Governor Wayne Winter has, of course, long been associated with discussions of the future of the South. He was chairman of the Commission of the Future of the South that wrote that famous report we began with Jim Clinton's comments on Wednesday. For me, his career and life has always been an illustration of the idea that the present represents the intersection of the past and the future. He has a deep sense of Southern history. He's a former president of the Mississippi Historical Society. He's long been active in the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, and the new archives building is the William Winter Building. Yet always he has been in the forefront of social change in the South and especially Mississippi. His work with the Education Reform Act in the early 1980s was a landmark, really, in changing Southern education in general. His interest in education reflected a sense of the South's future that has been as deep as his sense of the Southern past. The University of Mississippi has recently established the William Winter Institute for Racial Reconciliation, and that institute provides him another opportunity to mentor another generation of students and others. He's been supportive and constructive of our Future of the South initiative. Every year we have done it, and we're grateful for that. I bring to your attention his new book, The Measure of Our Days, that has been mentioned before, a collection of his writings, selected and edited by Andy Mullins. It's a wonderful distillation of his thinking about the South. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Governor William Winter.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you for introducing me so graciously. Thank you for including me on this program. Let me thank you and your staff. Skip Rutherford, let me thank you and your great staff here at Clinton School for hosting this conference. I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot about this region in which I've spent my life. And I thank you for letting me be a part of it. Now, I take note of the fact that it's past 3:30 on Friday afternoon. And where I come from, that's getting close to quitting time. And I don't want to have the same thing happen to me here today that happened to me once in one of those long ago campaigns that I waged over in Mississippi when I was running for state treasurer. That was when people turned out for political rallies, and there was this huge rally up in Manatee in Itawamba County, 25 miles northeast of Tupelo. I was running late. I had a full day. It was a Saturday night. I got there late. 2,000 people there on the ground to the high school. I dashed up to the master of ceremonies, and I said, "I'm William Winter. I'm running for state treasurer." Well, he couldn't have been less impressed with that information. He said, "I suppose you want to speak?" I said, "I sure do." He said, "Well, you can." He said, "We've had all the big candidates already." Said, "You can speak right after the supervisor candidates." And I said, "That's fine." He said, "Well, let me tell you something. Ain't nobody going to stay here and listen to you." So when I got up to speak after the last supervisor candidate had spoken, I still have this image etched into my memory. All I saw were about 2,000, the backs of about 2,000 people as they made their way to their cars and pickup trucks. And the last thing I saw just before I sat down were the taillights of about 500 pickup trucks going over the hill. Well, I don't want you to do that to me this afternoon. So I'm going to say what I think you would most want me to say at this time. I'm not going to speak very long. I've been asked to talk about developing young leaders. I want to introduce two young leaders that I brought with me to this conference. I want Caroline and Grace Gillespie to stand up. They are my granddaughters. Honor students at Oxford High School. They represent, they and their brother, who is a member of the Honors College at Ole Miss, they typify, they exemplify, they personify, as far as I'm concerned, the future leadership of our region and our country. And I thank him for being here. Developing young leaders. 4 things I won't say, and I will say it quick. 4 things about the all-important process of developing young leaders. First, they must come from a broadly diverse background that is representative of an increasingly diverse society. There was a time, not too many years ago, when in many, if not most communities across the South, a handful of self-chosen white men would gather in a downtown office and make the decisions that affected the whole city. Those meetings almost never involved any young men and no women or minorities at all. This new leadership must increasingly include women who now form a vital and critical mass in business and the professions, and it must also come from the elements of our citizenry who by virtue of their race or ethnicity for too long were excluded, from African Americans, from Asian Americans, from Hispanics, from Native Americans, who now are recognized for their ability and their vision in a country which needs their contributions. The second thing I would say is that those of us, this older generation, who've been around for a long time, must do more to ensure that the society that we would pass on to these young leaders is one which they will want to inherit. Because we have let money and the orchestration and influence that it brings, the ideologically driven win at any cost mentality, drive our politics and cause many people to regard our own government as our enemy. We find many of the best and brightest among these young people turned off by the cynicism that infects so much of politics today. So before we can appeal to the idealism of a young generation, we must do more to restore some of the idealism that went into the founding of our country in the first place, and which we are in danger of losing. We must remind ourselves, even as we appeal to these young leaders, that we still live under a social contract that was written into the Declaration of Independence, wherein we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We must honor that contract if we expect to inspire another generation to accept it. Thirdly, we must see to it that these young leaders have a clear understanding of where we have come from and who we are as a people and how we got to where we are. There's not enough of this kind of teaching and learning going on. Too many of our most able and promising young men and women have only a passing acquaintance with the events and heroes who shaped our history. This lack of emphasis on civic learning and historical background can be a fatal flaw in the capacity of these future leaders to lead. Without a knowledge of what has transpired before, they may well fall into the trap of repeating the old mistakes and ignoring the lessons that earlier generations paid so dearly to acquire. And finally, they must clearly understand, these new young leaders, they must clearly understand that public and civic leadership is never an easy road to travel. There are a lot of stresses and strains these days. It is easy for us to get split up over issues about which many people feel deeply. There are full-time practitioners in politics and in the media, and even in some church groups, who fan the flames of emotion and discord. We must not let ourselves succumb to the tendency to demonize those who see things through different eyes, based usually on different life experiences. Sometimes we have to walk in somebody else's shoes for a while to understand where they're coming from. My perspective is that the best way to overcome these stresses is through sharing experiences, through working with others, through recognizing that we are all in this together, and that the elements that we have in common are so much greater than the things that divide us. By working with other people who may be different from us, the old barriers and the old stereotypes begin to fade away. The greatest threat to our future as a nation does not lie so much in the streets of Baghdad as it does in the streets of our own small towns and great cities. If we become a country divided by race and class, where the gap between the rich and poor continues to widen, we shall pay a huge penalty in the quality of our lives and the stability of our society. A democratic society cannot leave these problems to be solved by blind chance or individual impulse. We must develop leaders who can provide that vision. And all of us must be involved with them in helping create more knowledgeable and informed public opinion that will be able to stand up to the demagogues and the political hucksters. It is a sad commentary on our so-called enlightened society when the inane and preposterous opinions expressed on talk radio appear to have more acceptance among many people than the thoughtful voices of reason and compassion. All of us must work to provide those voices, and we must develop leaders willing to speak out against bigotry and intolerance. We must seek to find worth in every person. That is how we pay our dues for the privilege of living in a free society. That is how we can pass on to the next generation a better country than the one we inherited. And that is how, in the words of that old 1986 report, we can finally get all the way home. Thank you very much.